Hello, my fabulous book people. Welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be talking to you guys about my part one of my top 10 books of 2020. I thought it was going to be so cheesy doing like top 20 books of 2020, but then I polled my Instagram followers, and actually Hillary from Hilly's Reads on Instagram, I'll link her profile down below. She gave me the idea of my top 10 BIPOC or POC books of the year. So thank you, girl, if you're watching this. So yeah, so what I mean from BIPOC and POC, I'm pretty sure, I'm 85% sure actually, that BIPOC is just for Black and or Indigenous people of color, and then POC, people of color, is like everybody else. So my top 10 that I planned, I'm splitting it into two different videos. So yeah, this is part one. And actually, because a lot of the books that I read this year from BIPOC or POC authors, they weren't released in 2020. So like I did kind of struggle putting this together. But the ones that I really loved that weren't published in 2020, I kind of have them as honorable mentions at the end. All right, so let's get into it. So my 10th favorite book of the year is this one. You probably never heard of it, which is fine. It's called Choosing Hope by Munira Premji. And actually, I worked at this publisher for most of 2020, Vanishing Half. They publish basically only diverse voices in poetry, fiction, nonfiction. They do a little bit of YA. So yeah, because I no longer work there, I'm at a different publisher now. I don't have any problems adding this book to my list. So this is basically, as it says, as you see, one woman, three cancers. So she was diagnosed with multiple cancers in such a short period of time. But yeah, like her journey is very hard. So yeah, she basically describes her journey. This is kind of like a collection of like blog posts-ish. And she, like her kids write some, her husband writes a little bit. She has a great outlook in life, a very positive person. I've met her. She is wonderful to chat with. Yeah, so I really liked her outlook. I loved the kind of like little life lessons that are sprinkled into this book. I think it is such a great testament to who she is as a person, and it really shines through. You can really tell that she put a lot of heart and soul into it, and like she's genuinely such a positive person. And yeah, so that's why this is on my list, because Munira, you are such a shining light in society, and I wish you all the best, and great job on your book. Ooh, I should probably move those other books so you guys can see them after. Where do I put these? These are workbooks. Okay, so number 9 on this list is The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett. This is where I struggled with like putting this list together, because I know that this book is like literally on everybody's top 10 list, so I kind of didn't want to throw in some repeat books, but then I feel like a 2020 list should only have 2020 releases. So yeah, this is not a reluctant ad, but this is a book that I just didn't want to add because it's so popular, but I mean, it does belong on every top 10 list for sure. So I really liked this book. The reason why it's so low on my list, I feel, is because I just didn't, I loved her writing style, but I wanted to learn more about the twin sisters. I personally just would have preferred to have their story instead of kind of like little choppy looks into their life, if that makes sense. If you've read this, it's still a great book. It was really it was a different book to read for sure, just in terms of reading something that is a little bit choppier and just not like an exact flow into the story. But you know what, hey, it was great, and it, like I said, it deserves to be on every top 10 list. So book 8 is Mexican Gothic by Sylvia Moreno-Garcia, who is actually Canadian, which I'm so happy about. I feel like a lot of people went into this expecting like more of a thriller story, but it's definitely horror, I believe. I'm bad with genres, sorry. But I loved the story. I thought it was really interesting, and again, I'm not a horror reader at all, and I don't like anything kind of unrealistic. but I really loved this book. I thought it was great. It was interesting. It was short enough. I mean, the ending, like, not my favorite way for the ending, but again, like, that's just a personal issue, and that will not take away from this book. I thought it was phenomenal. The cover is beautiful, like, clearly, and yeah, it deserves all the attention it gets, and I'm really excited. I think it's being a Hulu movie. It's being adapted into somewhere, which I'm excited for, and I can't wait to watch it. I think if you really like weird books to begin with, this is one to read. It does have like the horror elements, like I said. It's a bit of a thriller, mystery, so the characters were all so good. I loved the writing style. I just loved the way it was written, and I liked that it was just it was a different location. I mean, I really just mostly read books that take place in like US, UK, Canada, whatever. It does take place in Mexico, which I thought was so cool, although we don't really get much of that setting just because the family that the main character visits is in their kind of own mansion. It just has to do with colonialism and stuff like that. I know a lot of reviews do say that it's not like Mexican enough, or they don't get enough Mexico in it, but like, first off, watch your words. Also, I think that like that's kind of the point of this book, is to show like colonialism is one of the forefront runners. That is the issue of this book. I think that makes sense. But anyways, great characters, fun writing style. It's completely different than what I've read, but it draws you in. Like, this cover draws you in, the story draws you in. It's great. Read it. Book 7. Everything Inside by Edwidge Danticat. The short stories in here are great. I'm not one for short stories. Like, I'll read a couple collections a year, but nothing like substantial. I've always learned in school that you can tell how great a writer is based on how they write short stories. And reading this collection, that I can tell is like 100% true. These stories, I didn't feel like any of them were like cut too short or didn't get to know any of the characters well enough. So yeah, that's why this was a surprise to me, and I really loved the book. The stories do have like some kind of theme of like death, whether it's death of a family member, death of like a lifestyle, or like stuff like that. So death is just an all-encompassing, I can't say that word, all-encompassing kind of theme to these stories, but it's not depressing, if that makes sense. So it was really good. Each character was really fun to learn about. And I know that this was a Reese's book club pick, but I don't think it got the attention or as much attention as like other books did. So yeah, that's why I was really happy to add this to this list, because I think it needs to be recognized more, because it is truly great. Don't let short stories scare you. I mean, maybe, yeah, be wary about them, just because, like I said, sometimes you don't feel like you learn the characters, so maybe that's why you don't read them as much. But I'm telling you, these ones are great. This is definitely a short story collection that you need to keep on your radar. Okay, book 6 is another surprise, and that is Ties That Tether by Jane Igero. This is not your average romance book, let me tell you. The only thing I can really compare it to is Beach Read. Just only because like Beach Read was another book that I read and enjoyed this year that was also not your average romance. But this one deals with more interesting issues, I think, than Beach Read does, because Beach Read was still like it was, yeah, it was good. It was still romancy in a way that like the whole lovey-dovey aspect that you might expect from a romance. But this one, like, it had that, but it was also much more serious. And yeah, I will talk about this book more in my December wrap-up. But yeah, it's definitely a great book to read, and I really loved it. Yeah, if you're this is also a Canadian author, so that's great. Maybe you didn't like Beach Read, you want to try romance that's not so lovey-dovey, then I think this is the one for you. Getting down to the top 5. So number 5 is When No One Is Watching by Alyssa Cole. I talked about this book in my November wrap-up, so I'll link the video down below. You can go watch it. But yeah, so if you've watched that, you know my feelings. If you haven't watched that, go watch it and know my feelings, and then you'll know why this book is the top 5. It is great. I loved it. Perfect thriller of 2020. What can I say? I loved it. Book 4 is a little rough around the edges, thanks to Charlie. But this is Anna K, A Love Story by Jenny Lee. This is I had a really rough January. I read a few books that I wasn't like too crazy about. So this is the first book of 2020 that I genuinely loved. It was my first ugly cry of 2020. It's just such a fun book. And it is a retelling of Karenina, whatever, you guys know what I mean, please. Yeah, so it's a retelling, and I don't think you need to read the original to know this book. I mean, I was fine. I don't like classics, so I was fine just like reading this on its own. I think it reads well like a good novel. It was really fun. The characters are fun. I loved the New York setting, the kind of like a high profile rich setting. It was so cool, and yeah, I really enjoyed this one. It was funny, it was sad, it was heartbreaking at the end. Yeah, but it was really great. Also, as a side note, the next book is coming out, I think, in 2021. So plan on that new one being on my top 2021 list. Yeah, it's really fun. I loved her writing style, and I just like love these kinds of books. This third book, yes, book 3 on my list is for the true romance readers, and take a hint, Danny Brown by Talia Hibbert. Oh my gosh, where do I start with this? If you're looking for something steamy, hot, romancy kind of book, with a great representation of characters, this is for you. It was really great. And actually, Get a Life, Chloe Brown. I didn't add it to my honorable mentions pile, but it should be there. Maybe I'll just go. You know what? Let me just go get it right now. Oh my god, I'm surrounded by books. I'm joking. So yeah, this should be on my honorable mentions pile, so I will leave it to the side for now. But yeah, so oh my gosh, I love Talia Hibbert. She's so much fun to read. I really enjoyed this book a lot more than Chloe Brown, and that's saying something because that book was really great. I thought that Danny was a bit more relatable as a person. Chloe Brown was great, don't get me wrong, but I just really enjoyed the characters more in this one. I loved the story. I loved the romance. It was perfect. All right, we're almost there. So getting into my top 2. Book 2, this should really be no surprise. Grown by Tiffany D. Jackson. You guys know I love her. She's one of my favorite authors, and yeah, important books. Go and watch my November wrap up, and I will talk about this one in more detail. And there are trigger warnings for this book, so just be wary. But yeah, important issue, important book. It's definitely a must read. All right, my top book of 2020, and I have said this since I've read this in February. Yeah, I've basically been saying it since February, but this is my favorite BIPOC book of 2020, and that is Remembrance by Rita Woods. If you haven't read this, I don't think it's popular because I barely see it on Bookstagram, and even on like BookTube. Like, I don't see it as much as I would love to see it. It's such a good book. It is a historical debut novel that kind of spans different women's lives in different periods of history, with a little like kind of fun elements to it. I think it was so well done. Rita Woods is an amazing author. I loved her writing style. I don't know if she has anything coming out in 2021 or like anything else soon. I really hope she does because she's definitely on my auto-buy author list now. Yeah, just the story is excellent. It takes place in Ohio present day, Haiti 1791, and then New Orleans 1857. So yeah, it kind of, the way that everything connects to each other and how these women connect to each other is phenomenal. It is so, it covers everything. It covers kind of slavery, it covers stereotypes, it covers racism, and like it just covers so many topics in this book, and just the characters kind of really make this book. I loved it. It was so different than when I read normally, and that's what I also love about Once Upon a Book Club box. They usually pick books that you would not expect to like have heard of sometimes or to read, but you end up loving them. And this is like the most perfect example of what I can think of. Nobody talks about this book, so I wouldn't have heard of this at all if it wasn't for Once Upon a Book Club. So yeah, it was a really great choice, and it is my favorite book of 2020, released in 2020. And that actually goes for like part 2 of this video. Like, this is definitely like my actual top book. Like, If people ask me what was your favorite of 2020, it is this one. Doesn't matter. Yeah, doesn't matter. This is it. Okay, so that was the top 10 of BIPOC or POC authors or POC books that were released in 2020. So now I have, actually, I know I said 3 before, but it's actually 4 honorable mentions. Like I said, Get a Life, Chloe Brown. It was fun. It was great. You'll love this one. And I'm excited for the 3rd book. I haven't requested it on like NetGalley or anything, just because I want to read it for the first time, like as a book. You know what I mean? Like, it's already pre-ordered basically, so I'm just waiting to get it, which I can't wait anymore, but it's fine. This next one is also on quite a few lists. Maybe it was on a lot of lists last year, I can't remember. But that is Such a Fun Age by Killy Reid. Unlikable characters, but for good reason. If you haven't read this, you're really missing out, because it is fun, it is important, and it is different. It does deal with like racism, stereotypes, all that stuff, but it deals with it in a different way than I think most other novels would deal with it. So that's why this was such a surprise that I liked it, despite the characters. So yeah, definitely read this. You're missing out. So my favorite YA romance of 2020 was Love from A to Z by S.K. Ali. I loved this book. It was so fun. Again, not your average romance, but it was like more along the lines of like Beach Read, where it's a little bit more lovey-dovey kind of, but it is so cute. I loved it. And actually she's got another book that's coming out next year, and it is like tied to her first book, Saints and Misfits, I believe it's called. So I think it's like a prequel to that, or like a sequel. But anyways, this is an author that you definitely have to read. Her books are so fun, and she writes about really good topics that I think you wouldn't think about normally. So yeah, this is an author to watch for sure. So if you follow me on Instagram, you will know I recently reviewed this book, The Skin We're In by Desmond Cole. This is for the people who say that Canada doesn't have racist issues, or Canada isn't as bad as the United States. You're wrong. This book just covers the cases in 2017. Not all of them, obviously. I think there's like 12 or 13 maybe. So yeah, this book is really great. If you've been reading Stamped or looking into anti-racism literature or nonfiction literature, I think that would be the right term. I don't know. But don't forget about Canada, because I think a lot of people just assume it's like, you know, fine, or if it's fine. But yeah, no, it's not. I can attest to that. This book and any other book you read that's about anti-racism, like, they're not meant to kind of go like fly over your head. Like, you're supposed to pay attention to them and learn from them. So this is one of those books that you can definitely learn from and remember the lessons that you learn. Again, not only in this one, but everything else that you've read. Okay, so there you have it. There's my top 10 BIPOC/POC books of 2020 with a few honorable mentions, because why not? I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, let me know what your favorite diverse read of 2020 was. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, turn the notification bell on so you never miss another video. Thank you.